Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining today. This is our seventh time for you session. It's incredible. It's surprising how quickly 7 weeks has gone. But welcome, and we've had some great events going on, and today is no exception. We've got Nick Elston talking to us today around sort of motivation, anxiety, and tips to kind of to help you in your day-to-day life with your health and well-being. Nick has spoken before, and I've heard Nick speak before, and Nick's amazing. It's really motivational. So I hope you enjoy the session. I would ask, would you mind muting at the moment, and then towards the end of the session there'll be a Q&A at the end of the session, so please feel free to post any comments in the chat box and any emoticons or anything you want to put in the chat box, and then what we'll refer to at the end. An emoticon might be one of the transformers, I'm not sure, but you need to put the emoticons in there, so put whatever you like, or gifs or anything you like in the chat box. I'll stop talking now. I'll hand you over to Nick, and enjoy the session. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Dan. I had this kind of vision of a stream of emojis and not the good ones coming into the chat box. So absolutely no pressure at all. So Dan, thank you so much, and thanks for having me back. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I've never delivered what I'm going to deliver to you today before. I've created this for Dan because I've delivered for you before my keynote talk, Talking Anxiety, where I look at kind of clearly defining the difference between mental illness and mental health. Having experienced both of those things, such an important thing to kind of establish right from the start. So I work with businesses, I work with prisons, schools, universities, lots of different organizations, including healthcare, including education, and from that lived experience perspective. So I'm not a solution focused person. I'm not a fixer. I'm not a medical professional. And I clearly state that up front, because morally, what I do deliver is to increase engagement in the mental health and wellbeing strategies that are out there already. What a lot of people don't know is that I'm actually a speaking coach as well. So I wanted to do like this hybrid today of my little bit of my backstory for people I've not met before, then a little bit about mental health scattered amongst some speaking stuff as well, because actually you don't really get a chance to have that time for yourself and look into the world of something which is completely different. And according to Harvard, that public speaking is a bigger fear than death. So we fear ridicule more than we do dying. So it's no wonder, actually, it's something we're really petrified about. So I'll break down some of that as well for you too. So hopefully it's going to be a little nice break from reality, and we can start to immerse ourselves in something that's positive and a little bit motivational, maybe. Who knows? But everything that I do as a coach, as a speaker, is around this thing around forging people, using people's adversities and challenges, getting that energy and harnessing that to create something better. Everything that's happened to me now, which is exciting and forward thinking, has happened by mistake. It's happened through my worst times. And I think there's something in that. And this isn't like a hallelujah, he's cured kind of thing. Absolutely, I manage my stuff daily, using some of the things that I'm sharing with you today as well. So that's me. I speak all over the world on this stuff. And since we've got online, my dog barks all over the world on this stuff as well. So even pre-pandemic, I was flying all over the world speaking about the lived experience of mental health. Here in the UK, we have a real problem. Generationally and culturally, we've been brought up to believe that self-care is selfish. It's a reason why we will feel guilty or anxious even when we start to put ourselves before anything or anyone. Now more than ever, you guys are feeling that more than anybody or any sector that I know. But this is Tula. She is my little Shih Tzu. She really is a little Shih Tzu as well. Hopefully she's going to behave herself. Back in the good old days of worrying whether the plane would land on time or whether I'll get to the venue okay, now is the Wi-Fi working and there's a dog in the kitchen. So we're looking good at the minute. We're looking positive. So a little bit about my backstory for those I haven't met. I had mental illness as a child. I had obsessive compulsive disorder, very commonly known generally. OCD is a term much trivialized due to things like OCD cleaners on Channel 4. But for those who are aware of it, it's a very kind of painful, debilitating, frustrating condition. It's kind of like a safety mechanism gone wrong. And This happened when I was 7. It happened after witnessing a family accident, which is a whole different presentation altogether. That's not for a motivational time for yourself. But because it wasn't addressed the way that it would be now, I'm 43 now. Don't judge of a hard life. So back in the day, the treatment for OCD just wasn't what it would be now. So it morphed into something called generalized anxiety disorder as I got older, into my teen and adult life. Now, GAD, or generalized anxiety disorder, is statistically more common, but less commonly known as a term to the wider world. But some of the signs to look for in you or other people could be that you constantly assume the worst outcome. So you're always kind of seeing the worst situation in front of you. So all of your pursuits, your relationships, whatever that may be. It could be that you constantly seek your accountability, your worth, and your value in the opinions of other people, or maybe even the pursuit of material objects. Maybe that because you haven't got that kind of confidence and courage and belief in yourself, that you'll end up saying kind of yes to a lot of people you don't want to be saying yes to. And all of these kind of things combine to you living a life running on high anxiety. Now, as a speaker on the lived experience of mental health, really, really important, I try to say the things that maybe a solution-focused person would find it quite difficult to say. When I work with the BBC, I work with Sky and BT, I work with panel events alongside psychologists and GPs and mental health experts, that we all want the same thing, but we come at things from different angles. My angle on this is that you can be very successful running on high anxiety. Maybe even a lot of you are experiencing that right now, but you can only run for so long until you stop. And therein lies the problem, that we can run on high anxiety for a long time, potentially. Actually, even over the past year, a lot of us are still kind of working in survival mode. Again, you more than ever. I'm probably going to end up saying that a lot this time, but it's genuinely true. Now, in terms of my teen and in kind of school life, that because I had mental illness overhang, I like to call it, or mental health challenges, that my way of dealing with that would be to be in every clique. I was everything to everyone. I learned very early on that people pleasing was a fantastically effective mechanism. Utterly destructive, but fantastically effective. So what happened was that I would just be whatever everybody else wanted to see in me. I'll be in every clique. But interestingly, from the outside looking in, my parents and teachers and stuff, I was head prefect in every school, top grades in every school. So I was successful by that society tag of success. So therefore, I wasn't a problem. And I think then, because of that, and I speak a lot about conditioning and how those formative years play such a huge part when it comes to lots of different things, that it wasn't addressed. I went to adult life, into corporate life, into my business life, where I was always in client-facing kind of situations or responsibilities. I worked in account management and sales, and also was head of partnerships for a global software company. Now, all of these things basically mixed with anxiety is not a good mixture, because we're encouraged from a traditional mindset to run and run and run and run. I was in earlier than I had to be, away later than I needed to be. I was always present somewhere physically, never truly present anywhere, because anxiety to me lived in the regret from the past or the fear of the future. Very rarely was it today, but I couldn't see it for what it was. And actually what I found was, on most of these things, looking back now, that the things that would make me anxious, and even the things that make you anxious even today, most of the time what damages us is the story that we tell ourselves. It's very rarely the fact of the matter, it's an assumption, but I'll come on to that. Now, that kind of combination of things, that running for so long on high anxiety, I was experiencing burnout continually for many years. The overhang of mental illness, I had mental health challenges, but I also had that thing where I would mask how I felt because I was client facing. And we just do that generally, I think, that it's certainly one of the two contributing factors to most people I speak to around burnout and a subsequent breakdown at the end of that journey. Is masking is huge, that we will try and be what people want to see in us. We will try and be what situations demand of us, but we sure won't damn show ourselves, because when we show ourselves, again, our narrative tells us we're going to get shot at or dismissed or not loved, or all these kind of different things, or judged. But very often it kind of comes back to that fear of rejection. It's the lack of acceptance. It's that false evidence appearing real. That's what fear truly is most of the time. So when we're doing that, I had a different mask for at home than I did with my friends, different mask for my work than I did with my friends. I was a different person for every single situation, because I lost my identity. I was basically mirroring what I thought everybody wanted to see me, but none of them were me. And you can only live for so long not as yourself before you can get lost in that. That's exactly what happened. I think the second reason also why people get to that point and why I did, it's something I'm very mindful of when I speak to the healthcare sector, especially over the past 12 months, is that my breakdown stemmed from continual days and weeks of burnout, for sure. If I look to my calendar, and actually do this now, if you pick up your calendar, your diary, you'll fill your day up with all your work commitments, like we all have to do. Well, last time I checked, mortgages don't get paid on dreams and missions, so we need to do this stuff. However, we'll give the rest of our time away to whoever shouts loudest. So actually, unless you have that ring fence 30 minutes a day to yourself to rest and recover and recharge so you can go again strong tomorrow, where do you actually feature in your own life? If you're going from one commitment to the next, to the next, to the next, we have no control over that. And actually, that's the problem. The first thing we sacrifice when we struggle with mental health, the first thing we sacrifice when we struggle with even low self-esteem, low self-confidence, is that element of choice. We cannot control the uncontrollable. We cannot control pandemics. We cannot control other people, what they say, what they do. All we have ultimate control over are our thoughts and our actions and how we choose to proactively go into the day, accepting the fact we cannot control anything that comes at us. It's about resilience, how we can bounce back, how we can recharge and recover on a daily basis. So it's about reclaiming that choice, that element of choice, the first thing we sacrifice. And you've been there. I was certainly there. And even now, if there's days where I wake up just not feeling life today, I think about, oh, meh, kind of feeling, that will go at the ebb and flow of the day. And the problem is when we do that, we get buffered around by who we live with, by our situation, who we work with, and we'll just get tossed and torn about and battered and bruised. And so if we can start to reclaim choice, we'll start to bring a greater element of what the things we can influence into our lives and get rid of the stuff that we cannot influence, by letting go. Now, that's certainly the point where I got to my point of breakdown. My breakdown happened outside of a Premier Inn in Somerset. Classy guy. Choose your breakdowns well. If I knew I was talking about this stuff for a living now, I would have gone with Hilton or somewhere more exclusive and got a deal out of it. But it is what it is. Now, I left that kind of networking meeting. So for those not familiar, you go along, pretend to be happy, eat some breakfast, sell some stuff and go again. That's the format of most networking meetings I've been to. And I did that, and I've done that for a long time, really kind of using that masking behavior, sat in the car and basically just shut down. Now, a lot of people will reach this position of breakdown without even knowing about it sometimes, because we think that breakdown has to be an angry thing. It's like, and it can be, but absolutely for me, it wasn't. It felt like I was switching off. I'd lost hope, or the hope of something better. I'd certainly had just absolutely done with dealing with decades of kind of mental illness and mental health challenges. And so I shut down. And for 2-3 hours, I was sat in the car sobbing. But the worst thing about it at that point, when I look back, is wasn't feeling anger or anything like that. It was feeling absolutely nothing at all. I think for me, that's the most dangerous point that people can reach, because to cut off feeling hate and the bad, you cut off feeling love and the good. You can't have one without the other. So you actually end up living quite a numb existence. And again, this is a real kind of, I guess, a kind of a taboo subject. People don't talk about this, but actually that's the most dangerous part for me. Is when people do start to live in that self-contained kind of comfort zone, because as we all know, comfort zones aren't necessarily comfortable. A toxic relationship could be a comfort zone. It's easier to stay in a position of pain and frustration than it is to do something about it. And that's the reality of the situation. So some of these things that we build around us aren't necessarily healthy. And 2 weeks later, at the same event, I turned up, and in 2012 this was, as a 6'4", 20-odd stone, I ain't small, 20-odd stone guy talking about this stuff in 2012. It just wasn't the done thing. But for me, it was either going to consume me or I had to let it out. And that's where I started to get into speaking. My first experience was standing up in front of a whole room of people and telling them what had happened 2 weeks before in the car park, and telling them about OCD in kids. It was just basically a brain dump. It was all the things that had ever kind of given me pain. It was a terrible talk. I was shaking, I was crying, but everybody in that room queued up to give me their support. Secondly, everybody in that room queued up to give me a hug. I love hugs. There's 20-odd stone with hugging power going missing here and not there. And the third thing that really changed me forever was this. It suddenly wasn't about me anymore. Because I certainly have found with my own experiences in mental health, it becomes quite a selfish pursuit that affects everything about you. It taints us. It affects our sense of belonging. We don't feel that we can aspire to be any better or hope for any more. So by me sharing this, in a brutally honest way has been described, people started to open up and share their stuff with me. You will have experienced this as people that have trust and rapport, especially for those on the front line, actually dealing with people that are coming in for help at their worst times. You would have that trust and rapport with people where it's just people would just tell you whatever's going on with them without any filter at all. And that's where I start to see the power in being able to speak, because I never wanted to be a solution bringer. There's amazing solutions, there is amazing initiatives, organisations such as the NHS that I refer to, as you'll see later on. All these kind of different organisations doing amazing things, but unless you get the engagement, absolutely nothing changes. Now, it's a little bit better now. It's not perfect, but if you look at men, not exclusively, but especially with men, they have a real challenge to engage in mental health initiatives, because to man up and step up a lip and all those kind of different things. The other element of this, and this is for everybody, it's not exclusive in that sense, is most mental health initiatives are actually quite dry. They're quite daunting because it's a heavy subject. So for me, the perfect combination is to provide that kind of maybe lived experience angle or a different way of doing things to increase engagement to your doors as solution bringers. And that means that everybody kind of has a positive experience and they have that route to engagement. Because I tell you now, and you may have experienced this yourself, people are queuing up, waiting for permission to reach out for help. They just don't feel that they can. And that's kind of why I started to speak about what I do. That's why I decided not to be a solution bringer, but to empower people such as yourselves to have people to your door to reach out for help at their worst times. And the rooms got bigger, the audiences got bigger. And as time went on, I started to then travel the world doing this stuff. So I also then got into speaking coaching, helping other people with what I call emotional storytelling. And there's a reason why I focus on emotional storytelling, and I'll share that in a little second. But if you look at the greatest speakers of each genre, so when you're thinking about what kind of speaker would you be, you've got the educational, David Attenborough, you have the motivational, Tony Robbins, right, rah, kind of thing. You'll just whip a frenzy up from a room full of people without any energy. Inspirational, like Martin Luther King, or the Hello? I'm back. Sorry, I got muted. So with the important thing to recognise, and actually my monthly speaking academy is tomorrow, the reason why I put these 4 people up specifically is they're all male. There is also a disconnect, and I've made it a passion to do in the best way that I can to correct that disconnect. Tomorrow, when I look at my attendee list for my speaking academy, 80% are female. But when I get to the conference hall events, the stage events, the big venues, 80% are male. There's a disconnect somewhere along the way. And again, it falls in line with that traditional kind of sense of belonging. So that's also something I'm addressing as well. So it's become a bigger cause than just speaking, than just emotional storytelling. And everything I've done, I've always tried to do with passion. And if I see something that's just out of kilter, I try and correct it. So when you're thinking about this time for yourself that you have in this kind of hour period, think about actually what things do you notice that you would like to correct? What things do you notice that you feel that you can influence? And these are certainly the things that I feel that I can influence in a way. And I've got involved some real high level discussions around kind of really addressing this. When it comes to why people want to speak, we need to understand that speaking is more than just standing on stage. It's more than just leading a team of people, although they're equally as valid. I guarantee from the 20 people, the maximum 20 cohort tomorrow, 2 people will be there because they don't feel that they're being heard at home. That's the reality. Speaking is just being able to deliver a message with clarity and power and emotion. And if you can't deliver that message to one person or 10,000 or anywhere in between, it will have an ultimately defining effect on success by your own definition of success in that situation, in that relationship. So there's lots of different reasons why people want to speak. Maybe you know somebody maybe it's you, who has things like social anxiety. Because again, we don't feel that we're good enough or valid enough. If somebody also had a lot of social anxiety, well, the way that I used to mask that was alcohol. It's not a healthy way of doing it at all, which is why I don't drink anymore. But social events and social anxiety, the ability to feel that you have something to say and the ability to how to deliver that, again, changes everything because you feel valid, you feel heard. If you think about the biggest kind of the movements, even over the past year, we've seen this. It comes from sectors and organizations and environments where people genuinely over the period, over years, over life, feel that not being heard. This ability to be able to put your message, whether it's as a speaker, as in the traditional sense of speaking, or whether it's just to tell yourself your own story, which I'll come on to in a bit, that's a really powerful thing, to write the story of your life. Really powerful. Even if no one ever sees it, if no one ever hears it, it's a really powerful thing. Now, the most people I've spoken to online in one go over the past year, it was nearly 10,000 people for a conference. In person, it was about the same. It was about 9,000 people. But I know that if I go live on a video, or if I put something out through social media or YouTube, actually potentially over the lifetime of that video, it's got a reach of maybe millions, hundreds of thousands. And so the anxiety that's created by, or the fear that's generated by not wanting to put your head above the parapet and say a message, it's absolutely valid for that stuff as well. These are all speaking skills in the truest sense. You will all have specialisms. You will all have had adversities. You will have experiences that people will just love to hear, or they will love to read about. But the thing is, if you're keeping this in, nobody will ever hear your message. Nobody will ever hear your story. You don't even have to put your name to it if it's a sensitive subject. You can anonymously blog. But this is all speaking. This is about you being heard. This is about you being amplified. Again, as I'll come to in a second. The other reasons why people want to speak in the broad sense of the term is around anxiety and confidence, and also that self-belief element. I guarantee you, so this event that I run tomorrow is every month. They always run online at the moment. In real life, before all this happened, they were in person. And they were in person in the centre of Bristol. I use a training office there. Everybody at the start of the day would be even afraid just to say their name and where they're from. So I absolutely get it. I was there as well. However, to see the people bloom in an environment where there's non-judgmental, it's safe. Some of the exercises I'll share in a second are really emotional exercises. But by going through this process, they learn more about themselves. And it really ties into what I shared with you last time. In life, in business, in education, whatever we do, we have all the answers. We always look externally for help. We have all the answers. We just need to ask ourselves the right questions and then move out of our own way. And that's certainly what I found in my lifetime. The person that's held me back the most is me. Those kind of conditioning, those blocks that we put in place. So speaking has a dramatic effect even on your personal relationships. Now ask yourself this question: do you genuinely feel that you're being heard in your personal relationships, in your family relationships? Or, like me, a lot of the time you will go to, I've done this in person where I've had a sea of hands, like hands up, who here has said yes to something they wanted to say no to in the past 2 weeks? We've all done it, still do it. That kind of people-pleasing thing. If you truly want to live a life on your terms, or whatever that looks like to you, then it starts with making that stand for yourself. And it's not easy, but the things that I'm sharing with you today, hopefully it will be the roots of kind of your revival. So the secret for me, again, what people get tied up with is what you're going to say. If you get your words wrong, people don't know you don't know what I'm going to say. If I miss something now, you won't know that. But in my head, it'd be all consuming. Oh, I forgot to say that. So people don't know what you're going to say. There's also the other secret is people won't remember everything you say either. An audience will never, whether it's one person again or 10,000 people, an audience will never remember everything you have to say, but they will remember how you make them feel. Especially when it comes to storytelling of any capacity, whether it's to represent a business, a presentation, a project, team leadership, effective management, whatever that may be. If you start to show some vulnerability, if you start to show a little bit of yourself, you get a little bit back. You build a depth of relationship in that presentation, in that conversation, strong enough to get instant connection. It's an amazing thing, but the one thing we fear really is vulnerability. But if we can harness that, it starts to become our superpower. When we do that, we also become, by default, we become authentic in the true sense of the word. And there's a lot of tools that I used to really portray this. I always, if I'm standing up in front of 10,000 people at XL London, for example, was one of the venues that I'll speak at most often in the year. So as soon as I get to the stage, the first two things I say is that, do you know what? I'm really anxious right now. Like, who the hell wouldn't be? I'm just about to bare my soul to 10,000 accountants. That reality, that honesty, does two things. The first thing is that people know that they're going to get authenticity. And then secondly, they then want you to succeed. It's an interesting twist. Going back to that Harvard example, that people are more scared of death than they are speaking more than death. True, it was actually in a survey. However, in my years of experience of helping people to use speaking as a transformational tool, people aren't truly scared of public speaking. You're not scared about telling a story. It comes back to that fear of rejection. And a lot of the time we feel that we cannot be us in front of other people when it comes to a stage environment or a Zoom environment. I don't know how many people are on here now because I can only see Dan's face, and as beautiful a face as it is, doesn't give me any indication about how many people's in the room. But when you deliver authenticity and you kind of really shines through and you show vulnerability, your voice will be amplified. Now, if you are a quieter person, it's about how do we amplify that. It's not about turning you into some kind of like rah, rah, rah merchant. This is about actually using your voice. Even in day-to-day conversations, if you're a quiet person, you can command a room with silence. You can actually use silence creates a vacuum. If you don't fit it, somebody else will. So it's a really interesting kind of, I guess, trick in a way, but in a positive way. And when we share our story with people, we need to highlight the value of what we're saying, not necessarily relive everything that we've experienced. One of my friends, Zoe, I'm not sure if you've heard from her, actually, you may have heard from Zoe. Zoe is an amazing character. She's been through a lot of life challenges. And some of the things are really horrific. Now, she wouldn't walk you through the experience of those things. What she would be to tell you the value of what she's learned and how it's changed her in a positive way. We all know what certain things are in life. We all know what breakdown looks like. We all know all these kind of things that we experience. So what's the value in it? How have I come away from that? What can you pass on to an audience? And it's about controlling your emotional well-being as well. When you're delivering something which is emotional, guess what? It takes a lot of energy. It's the reason why I will never do more than 2 of these events a day, because I try and put as much as I can into it. I don't want to weaken what I'm going to try and deliver. And even today, where this is the first and only time I'm delivering this hybrid kind of conversation with you guys today, that I'm having to kind of control that as I go as well, because there's going to be certain things that I touch on when I share about, for example, my breakdown. That will certainly take me back there for a brief second. So you kind of need to catch up on yourself. But the overarching theme is using our adversities, using your adversities to get to a place where you create something exciting with that. I know people that have been through truly horrendous situations, horrendous life challenges, all these kind of different things. You all know people too. If not, maybe you may be one of them. Now, without that gift of being able to go back in time, then all we can do is deal with the hand that we're dealt. And they've gone on to launch charities, to create awareness, do something amazing with that. The energy that would have destroyed them, they've used as a catalyst to go forward. I think it's something very, very powerful in that. And speaking as the overarching term will certainly help how you do that. I'm actually going to share a few things that I don't tend to share publicly now. It's usually to the Academy Day tomorrow. Whatever you do, I'm a big country music fan. I shared this with you before, definitely. I love country music. It depresses the hell out of a lot of people, but for me, it's got an emotional connection. It's big on storytelling. It kind of creates, it forges that emotion in me. So whatever we do, have an emotional connection to what you're doing, because we always recognize the bad emotional connections we form to things. Maybe you have been driving along, walking along, listen to a song, suddenly you burst out crying. There's an emotional attachment there to a certain person, a relationship, an event that's gone before that is just in us. But we can start to forge new, powerful emotional connections in a very positive way. And music is one of those things. I'm going to do a little exercise with you shortly as well. So I'm going to skip on for now. So these are the 3 exercises that I take people through on the day. No one sees this publicly, so I'm really happy to share this with you today. So these are some of the tools that I developed to try and encourage emotional storytelling. So I get people to do a 1-minute talk in front of the whole room, whether it's in person or whether it's online tomorrow, about something that makes them angry or something they hate. We very rarely, especially for the British and the UK kind of communities, we very rarely do this very well. We'll kind of wait and then blow our tops kind of thing. So to deliver anger and hate in a controlled environment is really, really difficult. I always use a caveat to avoid politics and religion. Nobody wants a bun fight. But I give that kind of example of one of the things that I really get annoyed by is people that talk into their phones like this and they don't put it up to their ear or don't put AirPods on. For some reason, it just gets me. Other ones are dog poo hanging from trees. That's the most popular one we get month on month. People don't like the dog poo thing. Get that too. So think about something that just really makes you rage. And then if you were going to deliver a 1-minute talk on that, how would that sound? So when we deliver anger and hate, if we're trying to kind of get that across, the value, the feeling, making an audience feel that, anger sounds fast and short and sharp and louder. So we use our voice to convey that message. It doesn't change, it doesn't make the message disingenuous. It amplifies that to the audience. And we can do that even in our daily lives. It's not about making your message or opinions disingenuous. How do we deliver that so the other person, the other audience, really understands where we're coming from? So that short, sharp, really angry, and it's such a powerful round. And I always give people the caveat of, you can make stuff up. I don't know if you're going to make stuff up or not. You can make stuff up, but nobody ever does. Because when do you ever get given a space to rant in? And actually there's no comeback. There's no fight afterwards. This is an amazing opportunity. So again, even if you want to record a 1-minute video and just send it to me, I'm really happy just to look at stuff. It's really cool. So the next one after this, and I do this very specifically in this order, because if you think about energy is huge, and this is a whole day event on a Zoom call. So anger and hate is very high energy. Sadness and regret, this is the one that catches people. This is the one that I bring in a practitioner for. I have a practitioner in-house, in residence, to make sure that we manage states effectively. If somebody gets really kind of emotionally close, should we say, to really feeling that, then everyone's got that option of, right, Belle, it's good, big round of applause, you're all good, and then our practitioner will go and help them, even if it's online in a separate kind of breakout room. So actually it's a powerful one, but if you were given 1 minute to talk about something that makes you sad or something that you regret, what would it be about? Now, when we deliver sadness and regret, again, I use the same caveat. You can make stuff up. No one ever does, because when's the last time you had a place outside of a counselling session, maybe? And that's also very powerful. That's why Dan will never be able to book me after 2 o'clock on a Friday, is because that's my therapy. That's when I have my counselling. Very open about that. I use it very proactively. So in terms of this, sadness and regret. Sadness is slower. Sadness is using silence. Sadness is kind of thinking things through as you're delivering it. And again, it doesn't change the message, doesn't make it disingenuous, but you're giving your audience, you're giving the other person time to catch up, to absorb that, to absorb how you're feeling, to make them feel. And the reason I put these two things together again, anger to sadness, is because when you deliver a keynote talk, most keynote talks you do, if you're a fan of TED Talks, or they will follow a roller coaster flow. If you're going to take people down, you need to bring them back up again. You can't just put, and then he died, see you later, thanks very much, and exit screen. Doesn't work that way. But we need to know how good we can deliver sadness and regret as part of that flow. So it needs to follow with love and happiness. Always the bouncy one. The basics of this is that people can hear you smile. If you smile when you talk to people on the phone, they know you're smiling. Love and happiness is bouncy. It's very expressive. It's very open, especially in person. The use of body language is really important as well. So I get them people to do 1 minute on something that they love or something that makes them happy. And again, everyone kind of really loves this bit because it follows the really emotionally charged, emotionally heavy stuff and people to let rip. Really, really powerful combination of three things to go through, even if you just practice this at home. But be mindful of each of those things will have a different impact on your energy. When you listen to speakers deliver emotional stories, you will see them. Now I'm kind of sharing these kind of insights. You'll see them managing it in their own way. They may stop to catch up with themselves, or they may look away if it becomes more difficult. So you start to see this. It's the same thing with politicians. Nobody likes a politician pointing at them. So you'll never see one. Notice Boris Johnson the other night was doing this. The finger's gone in. So he's kind of like doing this knuckle thing, because nobody, and the psychology of speaking and the psychology of how we interact with an audience is an amazing thing. And even if we had a whole day, we couldn't get it all covered. But any questions on this, we can talk away from here or at the end, it's fine. But for the sake of this talk, when we also look at public speaking, obviously a big factor is anxiety and nerves. Now, disarming truth is that example that I used earlier on. Disarming truth is, I am really anxious right now. Not many speakers would do that. That's not a boast, by the way. It's my way of managing being anxious in front of people. But by using that disarming truth, by telling people that I'm anxious in front of them right now, even when I come on to this today, I was thinking like, I've never done this before. How's it going to go? All those conversations, it's not about eliminating them. It's about working with them. It's acceptance. And I know if I do these things, then 2.5 minutes into any talk that I do, even on stage in front of 10,000 people, my anxiety goes. It's an important part. I play to it. Anxiety is huge for me. I need that to get my energy up. I use lots of different things to do that. Narrative is really important. Very often we're hardwired to look for danger. We're hardwired to look for fear. We talk ourselves into a losing game. They're going to hate me. I'm going to be heckled. Thousands of events that I've done over the years, I've been heckled once, and that was by my mate, so I let him off. But our narrative tells us we're going to get laughed at or judged, or very, very often, if not all the time, we're wrong. So we change our narrative. We change the way we go into any situation. Same with visualization. There's an amazing article by Mo Farah that when he was kind of racing, he would, or going to an event, sorry, he would visualize how it felt to cross that finish line before he'd even rocked up. He would also feel how it would feel to have the audience cheering his name and doing the mobot and everything else before he'd even started the race. So it's no wonder that actually 9 times out of 10 he won, because his mindset was bang on. His mindset, his preparation was done. It's exactly the same with speaking. It's exactly the same with life. It's exactly the same with business. We can absolutely prepare for success even when we know things are going to happen which may blindside us. Body language and eye contact are really, really important. Less so at the moment, being honest, because of if I'm looking, so for example, if I'm looking at Dan now, as I am, it looks like I'm looking away because my camera's up here. So it does have an effect on how we deliver, because if I'm looking at the camera, I can't see Dan's reactions to things. And he's all I've got at the moment, so I'm really clinging on to that. When I work with kind of people who do wedding speeches, for example, very, very occasionally I'll help people with wedding speeches. Now, it could be the only time in their lives they decide to open up, if they decide to speak to anybody or any audience, and that's it. You forget sometimes living in an environment or working in an environment of being an entrepreneur, in a leadership environment, whatever that may be. We get chances to speak. We get chances to talk to teams of people. However, at a wedding, the best way to do that would be to distract the audience with body language. So if you're talking about the groom, point at the groom, the audience looks at the groom. So you end up in a situation where you can start to conduct your audience, which is an amazing state of flow to actually reach, having experienced that in person. But even in a small team, if somebody is quite a negative influence, then what we can direct to them or away from them, depending on what point you want to make, you can start to actually effectively lead and manage by using the power of controlling your speech. Grounding, again, it's a very kind of, I guess it's quite a fluffy term to a lot of people, but grounding is just thinking, right, okay, this is going to be the spot where I speak. This is my spot. That mindset thing again, I own this spot, this one spot on the planet. This is my spot. This is where I'm going to deliver from. This is going to this is where I'm grounded. Manage the manageables is very much about kind of letting go of the stuff we cannot control, as I said earlier on, but managing everything else along the way. So when Dan booked me to speak, not this time because I know him this time around, but the first time we would have had a 2-page booking form. not because I'm a diva. It's because I'm ticking off everything that potentially could go wrong. What platform is it on? What type of audience? What demographic? That kind of stuff. So all I'm trying to do is to put everything in place that I can influence and I can control, so that when I turn up, all I've got left is the stuff that goes wrong in the moment. It's really, really powerful. We could do that every single day, personally and professionally. Procrastination is the real kind of devil in the detail, really. But that again comes back to fear. Once we do that thing, when we step up, when we put that project out there, when we have that conversation, we're there to be judged and critiqued and criticized and poked and prodded. So we don't. And again, it's recognizing that procrastination is also driven by fear. But whatever we do when we deliver a message, one person, 10,000 people, everywhere in between, pace, tone, and volume. If you remember nothing else from today's talk, if ever you're in a position where you need to talk publicly in any sense, go with the middle range of your pace, tone, and volume, and you will give yourself every single chance of getting through that successfully. What do I mean by that? So if we're looking at emotional storytelling where you're delivering at different ranges, if you go in too high, you've got nowhere to go. If you go too low, you've got nowhere to go. In the middle, the pace, if you keep it slower, you give yourself time to breathe, you give yourself time to catch up, and you can actually start to think as you go. Most of my presentations are just one image on a slide at most, because what I like to do is to riff with my own content. So if I can see, sorry to keep picking on you, Dan, but you're the person I can see. So if I see Dan nodding at something and it's about a certain subject, I'll go there. I'm not scripted in that sense, but that comes with time. So by slowing my pace down, it gives me time to think. It's the same as if you're ever introduced to an audience in whatever capacity. Just the first thing you do, don't say anything. Just use silence and the room will follow with you. The volume will come down. Use eye contact to look around the room, smile at people, and then get into it. What we're trying to do is we're taking away every single barrier that your fear is putting in place. I mean, these are big subjects, so I hope it's kind of making sense with you guys, but I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards. So here's a bit of interaction for you. I'm happy to do this. So something that I also do tomorrow is I build a playlist of motivational music, and here's how I do it. So I want you to think right now. I have just been made the MC of the O2 Arena. 20,000 people have paid their hard-earned money to come and hear you do or see you do your thing, whatever your thing is. I'm just about to introduce you to the stage, and up comes your walk-on music. That one song that motivates you, that changes your mindset, it gets you up to peak state. What would your walk-on music be? In the chat box, pop the name of the song and the artist name. And then if you can share those with me after the talk, I will put together a playlist for you to be distributed. And you've got a playlist of motivational music that you can dip into at any time. So I want the song name and the artist name, and I will put that playlist together for you after the event. Then you suddenly got music on tap. Music can change your state instantly. So my track is by The Automatic, called Monster. Back in the day, it's a bit old now, but it's "What's that coming over the hill? Is it a monster?" That one. As I said, personal reasons for that, but it motivates me. So when I hear that song, my state goes up instantly. If I hear it on a plane or a train when I'm traveling somewhere, I feel like I've got to do something there and then, because it's kind of primed me to do that. But I've also got playlists of music which is slower, which to manage my state back down again afterwards. So use music to your advantage. You can do that in your working day. You can do that in your personal life. Music is so, so powerful. By the way, if you like Morrissey or the Smiths, it works the other way as well. It can bring you right down. And it's all about resilience. Like everything in life, it's about resilience. If we cannot control the uncontrollable, how do we recover as soon as we can? How can we be reactive and proactive in our recovery? It's the same reason why I still have therapy. It's the same reason why every single day I stick to the stuff that I'm sharing with you today, because I know that keeps me in every best chance possible of being in a positive state most of the time. And that's all we can really try and aim for. But also recognize the more that we put ourselves out there, you may feel sensitivity. Certainly if you are big on social media, you'll realize that there's a lot of people waiting out there to troll people and hate people and stuff. There's also a lot of love and warmth as well. But the more we put ourselves out there, the more open, the more visible we become. Same with speaking, same with writing, same with anything in life. So for the sake of this, actually, so I also want to make sure I come back for Q&A. Whatever you do, use this, and I did a video on this that went out this morning on this from my YouTube channel. Plan, prepare, engage, review, evolve, repeat. That 6-step process in anything that you're doing, do not wait for perfect to start anything. Don't wait for perfect to start that book. Don't wait for perfect to create that talk. Don't wait for perfect to do anything. Just start and evolve. And that's the best way. This 6-step plan will be the best way that you can start to actually get some momentum. And truly know your why. Whatever you do, whoever you're about and whatever you want to achieve, know why you want to do that thing. Because most of the time we run on habit, we run on our old conditioning. So we need to check in on why we actually want to do that thing too. And again, it's about communicating your niche. My niche, the lived experience of mental health. I want to give the upfront contract. I am not a solution provider. I am not here to fix anybody, but I do want to listen to you. I do want you to engage in somebody that can help you. And that's exactly what I'm about. And just remember that the power is always in the comeback. Without all of the kind of my darkest days, this just wouldn't have happened. And we need to know that. I think especially right now, we need to know that as well. And I'll come on to that at the end. And when you're looking to find an audience, I mean, like I said, these are all the audiences that I work with, but yours could look different as well. And it's not just commercial. I don't have any commercial partnerships in terms of who I refer to. I refer because I trust the organisations that I refer to. To me, to make that commercial would be disingenuous. So I don't do that. I donate my time to care leavers for London Borough and lots of different things. It's not just commercial, but whatever your thing is, there's an audience for that thing. Whatever you want to say, whatever adversity you've been through, there's somebody wanting to hear your story. Because if you can just help somebody, just one person from every time that you share a message, then that's surely what it's got to be all about. And the Speaking Academy that's where the content comes from, and that happens every month. If anybody wants to come along, like just as my guest, just let me know. You're more than welcome to come along. And again, like with kind of reaching out for help when it comes to mental health, it's the same with when we look to put ourselves out there. If we truly want to be heard in life and in business and whatever you want to achieve, everyone is just waiting for permission. So if you are waiting for permission, this is the sign you've been looking for. Just start to make those moves, start to reach out to people. Ask me questions. If it's something you want to achieve, you don't know where to start. If I don't know, I know other people that know. It's the same with Dan in kind of introducing him to other speakers and stuff. That this isn't about just me. This is about actually, if I can help connect you to somebody that's going to answer your question, then absolutely it's all been worthwhile. And this is Excel London, where I speak 4 to 6 times a year. The reason why I put this picture up now is because this is my first event there. 5 years before this was taken, I was being taken out of here after having a panic attack. I wasn't speaking. I was just attending. I was trying to nick the goodie bags off the stands when the sales guys weren't looking. We've all been there. And he just caught my eye, and that was it. I just went. It was really in the midst of my bad times. And within 5 years, I was booked to speak here in my own right. Now, the one difference, genuinely, it sounds glib, but it's true. The one difference is this self-narrative, reprogramming yourself. And to start that, we need to ask ourselves some tough questions. We need to start to question our own barriers and then eventually move out of our own way. And if you are into country music, certainly check out Ashley McBride, Girl Going Nowhere, one of the best comeback songs I've ever heard. I won't go into it now because I want to come back for questions, but just check out the lyrics. It's one of the tracks that I listen to every time before I go and speak somewhere. It's hugely motivational for me. And if you do want to kind of look me up and stuff, I'm on LinkedIn. I have a podcast called The Forge Ahead Show, which new season started yesterday. And I'm on YouTube with a very active YouTube channel as well. And again, any questions, I'm really happy to hear from you. Given the sensitivity of the subject for some, this is where you can reach me. I have nothing to sell you. You are absolutely safe to ask me questions. I'm just here to support Dan, the great work you are all doing. And if I can help you in my own little way, then I'm delighted to do so. And that's me. So I'm going to come back to the room now and hand over to Dan for any questions. Hey.
Thanks, Nick.
People. Oh, hey, people.
Yeah. There's people. Thanks, Nick. That was a great That was really interesting, and it covered quite a lot of bases there. So thanks very much, and some really useful information. We've had some great song choices in.
Awesome. I can't wait.
I was wondering if we could. What's that? Sorry. Sorry, I think my network is playing up. So apologies if you can. But we had a couple of questions. Can you still hear me, Nick?
I can. Yes.
Oh, okay, brilliant. We had a I wondered if I believe it was Helen Catherall. Helen, I wondered, would you mind unmuting and just saying around the Swartz rounds? Do you?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Thanks.
Oh, hi Nick. I don't know if you've heard very much about Schwartz rounds.
No, I haven't.
You haven't. So it's something that was created by the Point of Care Foundation, and it's a form of reflective practice where we host them at UHP, which is Plymouth Hospital, and many other organisations use them as well. And it's where we get 2 or 3 panelists come to share a story. So this particular week we did one about racism, and so people will share quite a personal story. And the idea of it is that people just sit alongside the panelists and just listen and reflect. So there's no desire for people to kind of say thank you or to kind of rescue anybody. It's just about listening and accepting and then reflecting on your own experiences, and then if you feel compelled to share that with the groups. It's all about sort of listening and reflecting together. It doesn't have to be learning oriented either. It's just about acceptance of these events really, and what we personally learn from it.
Wow, love that.
Yeah, it's really therapeutic, I think. And but the challenge we have, and we're trying to run these on a monthly basis now, is that it does rely on people coming forward with their stories. But as you described early on, the whole thing around how will I be perceived when I share this story, particularly if it's quite a personal one, people need to feel that they're in a really safe space. So we try, and create that through through doing it virtually on Zoom at the moment. We kind of manage who comes into the room and that kind of thing. But I was just hearing how you started. It might be a way of inspiring people to feel they could come forward and share their stories as a panel member. It's only for 5 minutes that people need to speak for.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Happy to help wherever I can. Definitely, I think that's a really great idea. I think it just lines up with the reason why I chose to do what I do and not going down a solution route is because I think just power in that kind of, even though a lot of my stuff is set to my story, actually it's about them. It's about how does that land with them. So in the full talk that I did before for you guys, that I will talk about areas of life and business, and depending on where you are at any one time, you may hear 2 different things at the same talk. Because people are waiting for kind of that permission to reach out and ask. So if I can help in any way, you only have to ask. No worries at all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Thanks, Helen. Thanks for unmuting, and thanks, Nick. So there were a few other questions. Sue Taylor, Susie, are you happy to ask? I think you had a couple of questions.
Yeah, I'm going to have to make them quick because I need to dip off to do a resilience session. Yeah. Funnily enough. So the first one was I'm observing a very close one at the moment that's kind of going to that kind of meltdown stage of burnout, where identity is really a problem. So how did you discover your identity, and how long did it take? That was sort of and that's a very can be loaded question, really. So
yeah, and for the sake of your time, the nutshell, the answer to this is I'm still finding it. It's the reason why I still proactively work with professionals to continue that, especially ironically around acceptance and things. But the identity I'm still finding, because actually I can't change, even though it was 2012, which is comparatively, I guess, a long time, but it doesn't change decades of kind of conditioning behaviors and things like guilt and regret about things that you may have done along the way from not acting from a position of being healthy. So yeah, that's still, the identity is like a work in progress for me. What I have learned though very early on was I appreciated that success, by my definition of that, was going to be found in the journey, whereas most people think success is in the destination. So if I wake up, especially early doors, if I was having a great day, that's a success. And then also if something messed up in that day, I wouldn't write it off, because again, it creates that boom and bust mentality. You're either all in or all out, and there's nowhere in between. And I was trying to come away from that belief system. So yeah, it's very much a work in progress. I extend the same offer. If you ever want to talk away from here about that, I'm really happy to talk to any of you about anything.
Yeah, I might do that, Nick, actually.
Sure. Please do.
And the other one I had was from a personal point of view was, you know, I come from classically a kind of English upbringing where, you know, sorry was in the vocabulary too much. And,
Get that.
you know, I'm always kind of like a people pleaser, and, you know, burning myself out for others, not thinking about myself, you know.
Yeah.
And whilst I've worked on that for many years, it's still quite an issue. I wouldn't say I have the GAD, but there are other issues. So I often find that, you know, when I'm delivering interventions, it's almost like acting and you're not really yourself. And then I've put here, do you worry that your current speaking career masks your GAD?
Absolutely. I'll be honest. There's two things I want to mention there. So I have learned as a former obsessive compulsive that actually if I can use routines in the right way, i.e. my music playlists are immaculate, but if I can use routines in the right way, I can actually set up some really healthy mechanisms, like if I wanted to say no to somebody, instead of replying in the moment where I'm driven by fear, I would say, I'll get back to you. 2 minutes later, actually, no, I can't. You're putting these kind of things in the way. So those little routines actually are enforced by a weakness traditionally. Kind of. In terms of the masking thing, yeah, absolutely. When I'm very open about what I deliver, I will very often stand up on stage or in a boardroom and say, actually, this happened to me today. I don't feel very good about it. What do you think? I'm very open in that way. But yeah, as soon as kind of you go on, it's kind of like any singer or performer, you need to kind of, I try and balance that performance that people have kind of like a lot of the time bought or kind of expect for their teams, between the authenticity, vulnerability piece as well. So for me, it's like a trade-off. As long as I'm not either all in one way or all in another way, that there's a balance to be had.
Yeah, definite balance.
Everything else can be certainly it's like a uniform, I guess.
Yeah. Very interesting. Thank you, Nick. I'm going to have to sign off now, but thank you very much.
No worries. Good luck. Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue, for asking. Thanks for answering that. We might just be a couple of minutes over, if that's okay. The song choices, Simply the Best, Good to Be Alive by Andy Grammer, Beyonce, My Power. You can't, The Eye of the Tiger, I put that one in because I Don't Stop Believing, Journey, Van Halen, Jump, Take the Weather With You, Feeling Good. We got lots of suggestions, really good suggestions. So
there's two consistents. There's always the Rocky theme. The Rocky theme is always a consistent one.
The Rocky theme, yeah.
And
the
also
that's the eye of the tiger. Yeah.
And then also you've got Thunderstruck by AC/DC is usually on there somewhere as well.
Thunderstruck. The final countdown, I would suggest as well, maybe. I don't know. Okay, so thanks very much, everyone, for joining today.
I'll pop onto the playlist some tracks that I've referenced as well. So like Ashley McBride's and My Walk on Music, and another track which is every storm runs out of rain, which is what's printed on my office wall, which I love the quote, but it's a great track as well. We need to know it at the moment as well.
Brilliant. Yeah. So I was just gonna sorry, my connection I think is going a bit, so apologies, Nick, because I missed that last bit. But all I was going to say was the next week we've got a bake along, so we're going in a completely we're doing a bake along with Mrs. Bunn the baker. So if you can join, I recommend it. We've done it before, and we're making Easter biscuits next Wednesday live with you. So if you can join, same time next Wednesday, 2 till 3, Easter biscuits. The ingredients are on the invite. If you need to know the ingredients, then you can always email me on the health and wellbeing mailbox, which I'll put in the chat in a minute. But thanks again, Nick, for a great session. And I think
Thank you.
we had over 100 people join today, so it's been a really
Brilliant.
well attended session. And you can just tell with the feedback that lots of people are giving. So I'll pull all the feedback and all the positive feedback and thanks to you after this. So
thank you so much. It's really nice to see everyone again. Thank you. Thanks for everything as well.